When I was 14 years old, I had already gone to 14 schools. 2 months worth of water for showering is equivalent to a burger. Earth is our spaceship. We're traveling through space, through the solar system. So my question to all of you is, what box are you in? So I'd like to start with an exercise. So I want everyone to look around the room and count the number of red items that you see. So there's some red there, I see. See if there's any nice red shoes or a red dress. Okay, stop. So does everyone have their number? Okay, now quickly, I have one question for you. And so in order to ask this question, I need you to close your eyes. Everyone has their eyes closed? Okay, how many items are green? Okay, if you're like me, then you had a challenge trying to think of the number of items that are green. And that's because you were focused. You were focused on the task at hand, counting the number of red items. You kind of put yourself in a box where you saw other things in the room, but you didn't really process that information. So I like to think about this as an analogy for life. We put ourselves in boxes all the time. Sometimes these are good boxes. So like if you need to count the number of red items. If you're charting a career path for yourself, or if you're starting a company, you definitely need to put yourself in a box. You need to focus on your goal and block out everything else so that you can achieve that goal. But sometimes the boxes are not so good. Sometimes they confine us. Sometimes they limit us. They can be boxes placed on us by society, by our families, and sometimes even we do this ourselves. We place ourselves in boxes. We have to realize if we're in a box so that we can figure out how to step outside of it and see the world for what it is, a world of unlimited, in many cases, possibilities. So early on in my life, I realized the importance of stepping outside of boxes. When I was 14 years old, I had already gone to 14 schools. This happened because my parents actually separated when I was 3 years old, and they both moved several times, and I moved back and forth between mom and dad to dad. So the net result was 14 schools by the time I was 14. So this could have created a number of boxes for me. A box of instability, or a box of instability leading to self-pity. I could have put myself in all kinds of boxes. But instead, when I turned 14, I realized what was going on, and I made a decision to step outside that box and see what other possibilities were available. I decided that I was going to make a change, that I was going to basically create my own reality, that I had entered my last school, that no matter what happened, I was going to graduate with the same people with whom I had entered this school. So you can imagine a 14-year-old making such a decision. It was quite challenging, and there were definitely times when it didn't seem like I was going to be able to achieve my goal. At times, I had to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go from the home that I had just moved to the school that I had vowed not to leave. But happily, when graduation time came, I did graduate with the same people with whom I had entered school. So I understood the power of creating your own reality early in life. And we create many types of boxes, and a box that I'm currently focused on with my life, my career, is around the box of how we produce food. Can we get outside of that box? There are many positive things about how we produce food, but there are many challenges as well. And so farming, of course, has been around with us for a while. We originally were foragers, hunting and gathering for food. And when farming came along, we realized that you could take these seeds and figure out how to cultivate them on a large scale to create communities and feed communities and cities, and these things developed. And over time, as the population grew, there was a lot of innovation that was a part of farming. And the innovation was around irrigation, around cultivation practices, ultimately fertilizer. Haber-Bosch process was discovered in the early 1900s, and it revolutionized farming. It is actually estimated that the yield potential of land has quadrupled since the 1900s because of the fertilizer industry, which is a result of the Haber-Bosch process, as well as other modern farming techniques. But there's problems. As you can imagine, with many successes, as you scale from producing food for a small number of people, billion or so people, to 7+ billion, there's challenges. So farming has led to an industry that produces more greenhouse gases than all of our planes, our trains, our trucks, and our cars combined. It has a huge greenhouse gas footprint. And in fact, in addition to that, modern farming takes up a lot of land. So as we continue to grow food production, we continue to clear land for crops, for animals, and for those animals to graze and to feed those animals. And in fact, the overall area of land that has been cleared is equivalent to South Africa, or South America rather, and all of Africa combined. And that's just to feed the people today. As a result of all this land clearing, there's natural habitats that are continuously being removed. In fact, a baseball field, or a football field rather, size of a rainforest is cleared every second. You look at Brazil and Indonesia, Malaysia, you have large-scale clearing for soybeans, sugarcane, for palm plantations. And in fact, in Indonesia, between 2000 and 2012 alone, an area the size of Ireland was cleared. This has a very negative effect in that it leads to the extinction of species, insects, plants, animals. This is happening on a continuous basis. And then there's water. A lot of water use for modern ag. And in fact, if you would like to account for your water use for a burger, then you'd have to stop showering for 2 months. 2 months worth of water for showering is equivalent to a burger, what it goes into producing that as a food product. In addition, our climate is changing. Modern agricultural, the industry as a whole, is contributing to that through the greenhouse gases that are being emitted, but the climate is changing. Temperatures are increasing, and as a result, there's droughts. The drought season is extended, the droughts are more severe, and we're having many problems associated with that. So, why is this important? When my grandfather was born, there were 1.5 billion people on the planet. In the next 20 to 25 years, there's going to be 10 billion people on the planet. So that's huge population growth. And we already have challenges feeding everyone today. How are we going to feed 10 billion people by 2050? So modern agriculture has led to a lot of positive things. It's able to feed our planet, It's able to produce lots of nutritious food for people, but there's a huge issue. There's a sustainability issue. So this is where innovation comes in, and we're in a room full of innovators. You all are a part of the ecosystem of startups. And so the question that I have for you is, if, as you're looking for and thinking about starting a company, or maybe you already have your company, is there any way that you can be a part of the solution? So happily, my company, Kiverdi, we have as a mission to recycle carbon to feed the world. That's our mission. And we're doing it, we started by stepping outside of a box, essentially. Let's go to space. So if you're thinking about how to have a successful journey from here to Mars, then there's a lot of different things that you have to solve for. And you're clearly in a different box in that case. So the scientists at NASA thought long and hard about this during the 60s and 70s. How can we ensure that we're able to have a successful space journey if we go to Mars or beyond? Many things would have to come together and to make that work. One of the things that you have to think about is how to recycle carbon. And recycling carbon is actually the same as how do you produce food? It's the same type of question because we're a carbon-based life form and we get our carbon through food. So they had an interesting solution for this, and along with this out-of-the-box thinking, it involved the use of single-celled organisms, of microorganisms. So just like plants, but single cell, one cell instead of multiple cells. And so the solution that they came up with their out-of-the-box thinking was to create a closed-loop carbon cycle on board a spacecraft. And it would go like this. Astronauts would breathe out carbon dioxide, just as we're all doing right now. And these microbes would use that carbon dioxide, once it's captured, as nutrients. And along with hydrogen from water and some other nutrients, just like plants, these microbial seeds would grow, and food would be produced. And that food would then be consumed by the astronauts, who would breathe out that carbon from that food in the form of CO2, which the microbes would then use to make more food from the microbial seeds, and so on. And so a closed-loop carbon cycle would be created. And the benefit of this approach versus plants are that, like plants, you can make nutritious food, but these microorganisms grow much faster. They grow in hours instead of months, and they use minimal resources. So this was an interesting thought experiment that they did early on as they were thinking about how one would have a successful trip to Mars or beyond. Well, we haven't gone to Mars. We've gone to space, but not quite to Mars. So this technology kind of sat on the shelf. A few people worked on various aspects of it, but by and large, it's set on the shelf. And myself and a colleague of mine, when we first started Kiverdi, before we were joined by such a wonderful, phenomenal team, we were thinking about Earth as a spaceship. And many people have said this before, Earth is our spaceship. We're traveling through space, through the solar system. And we have carbon that we need to figure out how to recycle better. And we need to feed a growing planet. So with these NASA-type innovations, with this out-of-the-box thinking, one can solve problems like food production. How do you produce food sustainably and scalably while also fighting climate change? And that's what we're doing at Kiverdi. And we are able to do this because the core of the technology that we're commercializing, and it's a biotech innovation essentially, captures carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a core input. And then we turn that into many things. One of the things we turn it into is a product that you can actually put back into the soil. It's called a biostimulant. And it actually is a way of taking carbon out of the atmosphere, putting it back into the soil in a way that increases the yield of crops. These biostimulants have a number of beneficial effects, and they go beyond the typical fertilizers. They're organic, and they actually feed the natural microbes that are in the soil. They actually are able to protect plants from stresses, abiotic stress, and they're able to help plants recover faster from things like droughts. The net effect is to be able to have agriculture that uses less water, so use minimal resources in order to produce our food, and also to do it better enrich our soil. We have a problem with the health of the soil. So these organic biostimulants are able to enrich the soil, and the net effect is to have farmland that has a higher yield. So you're able to get stronger, healthier plants, healthier crops, healthier soil, and get more output per land area, which helps the farmers and helps us all. But we can go beyond that, because this process, these microbial seeds, can actually make a plethora of things, many things. And one of the other things that it can make that we're excited about are products that you get from plants. So they have similar metabolic pathways, or the same, essentially, metabolic pathways that you find in plants. And so plants can be rich in oil, think of olive oil. They can be rich in proteins, think soy protein. And these microorganisms are just a different way of taking carbon dioxide and converting it into these essential nutrients. Plants do that, these microorganisms do it as well. So with this type of out-of-the-box thinking, one can create, and we are creating, what we consider a new type of agriculture with new types of crops. We call it probiotic agriculture. Why do we call it probiotic agriculture? Well, how many of you in here like yogurt? Okay, I see a lot of hands. And we think of yogurt as being rich in probiotics. Well, those are just microbes. So every spoonful of yogurt is a spoonful of microorganisms. If you like beer, if you like wine, if you like cheese, you like either eating microorganisms or eating and consuming and drinking the product of microorganisms. So as it turns out, microorganisms are an integral part of our food production system already. But we aim to take it to the next level and to make all the nutritional ingredients that you can find in plant-based products through this process. So not just making yogurt and cheese and beer and wine, but also making protein and oils and other products. And the protein that we can make, and we're working with commercial partners to commercialize and scale, actually is rich in all the essential amino acids. It has a higher protein content than you get in soy protein or legumes in general. And it's also rich in minerals and vitamins. And vitamin B12 is one of those vitamins. And if any of you are vegans in here or vegetarians, it's impossible to get vitamin B12 from a vegan diet and hard from a vegetarian diet. So one can have vegan sources of both high protein with this essential vitamins that you need. And so what you can create out of this are environmentally friendly products, protein-rich products, whether it's the meat that has that flavor of beef but isn't beef for your burgers, or it is chicken that has the texture of chicken but isn't chicken. You can make that with this core protein ingredient. You can make things like protein shakes, protein bars, protein-enriched flour for pastas, protein-enriched cereals, and you can even make protein-enriched cookies. Throw some desserts in there as well. So this is essentially a new type of vertical farming, as it were. We're able to scale vertically with this process and produce food in hours instead of months. The net effect of all this is that you get more output per land area, and you can grow food faster and a very nutritious food and grow it in a way that's sustainable. The impact is that you use much less resources, so 2,000 times less water to make protein using probiotic agriculture versus soy protein, for instance. And significantly less land. That's currently a problem with ag. The land required is 10,000 times less. So you get 10,000 times more protein per land area. What does this look like? So this is actually equivalent to clearing all of Texas and creating a soy farm in all of Texas, one of the largest states in the US, and getting protein from soy out of that, versus creating a probiotic ag farm in Walt Disney World. You get the same amount of protein for those two different land areas. And this process is all natural. It's antibiotic-free, hormone-free, pesticide-free, non-GMO, and a completely natural process. So with this out-of-the-box thinking, it led us to think of a problem that we have that seems to be something that is standard for everyone, but we took it to the next level by going out of the box and looking at NASA innovations and NASA thoughts to create something that we believe has the benefit of being sustainable and allows us to create food for a growing population. Spaceship Earth needs to recycle CO2, and we need to do it in a way and produce food in a way that sustainably feeds our growing population. Our crew is growing to 10 billion by 2050, and we need to do things that reduce this climate change problem that we have, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and keeps our natural habitats protected, completely protected, rainforests not being removed, and able to feed the population. So my question to all of you is, what box are you in? So there's the box that you might be in now that could be keeping you from going to the next level with your business, starting your company, or whatever box that's constraining you. And then my question beyond that is, what box is out there in society where you think you can have an impact? Is it education? Is it the environment? Is it healthcare? I challenge all of you to think about those boxes. And independent of what company you're in or what company you may want to start, think about ways in which you can have an impact in that company. There are so many possibilities out there. There's so many different ways to have an impact. It could be through your employees. It could be through volunteer work. It could be through new ideas on how to deploy software to reach new opportunities, new people that have issues that your software can address. Mahatma Gandhi has a quote that I'll paraphrase here, where he said, "A small body of determined spirits fired by an unquenchable faith in their mission can alter the course of history." So I ask you, how will you alter the course of history? Thank you.